Hey guys, I'm Nathan with Seek Outside, and I've got 100 pounds on my back. Today I'm going to talk about how to make these heavy loads suck as little as possible. So first things first, I've been wearing this pack while I was setting up the camera gear and stuff. I've had it on a few minutes. I can already tell I've got one major problem, and that is load distribution. This load is too low. It's trying to pull me backwards as I stand here, and my center of gravity is somewhere right around here. I'm pretty neutral right here. So if I were on trail, I would be hunched over pretty uncomfortably the whole time. So I'm gonna get that fixed, get the load up higher, and we'll go into detail a little bit later on how you can do that. One other thing that I've noticed is my torso is too low. Top of my harness is way below C7. So I need to get that adjusted, lengthen the harness out just a bit. I'll get those adjustments made, and we'll take a look at it then. Okay, that's much better. I've got the load up. I just moved the load shelf up some. Hopefully you can see that. We'll go over the compression a little bit later, but much more of the weight is up. So while we're on load distribution, I'll cover that really quickly. If the load is too high, then it's not that uncomfortable front to back like this. It works pretty well like that. But if you're on a steep slope, deadfall, things like that, and you get too far to one side, you can't recover. The pack will take you to the ground and you'll roll, which is dangerous, of course. Too low, load gets too low on your back, and it makes you feel like you're doing a crunch the whole time. You saw earlier where I was having to get too far over in a crouch, kinda, and that's really uncomfortable. The other thing that can happen is if I had a pack bag on here and the pack bag was full and I put the weight too far away from my back, the same thing, it's gonna pull me backward. I'm gonna have to lean way too far forward, and it's just uncomfortable. So there's a lot to getting a comfortable ride with a heavy load. There's a lot of tips and tricks, small things that you can do, different ways you can rig things to make it better. But the overriding factor is backpack fit. And when I say backpack fit, I'm mostly talking about preventing hip belt slippage. When the hip belt slips, it generally occurs in the back, in the lumbar area, and the belt will slide down. That puts more weight on your shoulders, and to counteract that, you wind up tightening the belt, and then it slips some more as you're on trail. Tighten the belt, tighten the shoulder straps. You wind up strangling your waist. You'll bruise the points of your hips because the belt is cantilevered and hanging off your hips, and you're carrying way too much weight on your shoulders. So you can muscle through that in the short term, small, short pack outs. But if you've got a long pack out, it's just miserable. And when you get back to the trailhead and you have to go back for another load, it really decreases your appetite for that. It gets pretty bad pretty quickly. We've got some good fit videos out already, so I'm not gonna go too far into this. I will say that lumbar pad versus no lumbar pad with our packs, you will be in one camp or the other. I am no lumbar pad. I'd say 75 to 85% of our customers need a lumbar pad or like it. I get a better ride without it. So on torso sizing, top of my harness, it's pretty close right now. I can touch C7, the pointy vertebrae at the base of my neck, and the top of the harness is not too far from that. So it's okay right now. It could actually come up a little bit more. I will tell you this, you can set your torso at 30 to 50 pounds in the pack, and then you throw 80 to 100 in it, and you're gonna have to adjust it because everything stretches, and it stretches to the max, and then you're gonna have to reset it. So one more thing on fit. I am an 18.5-inch torso, and I've got a 26-inch frame in this pack right now, and I would normally have more load lift than this. So I'm gonna throw in a set of 4-inch extensions and bring this frame up to 28 and kind of show you what that does, what it looks like, some of the advantages or disadvantages. For what it's worth, I have packed out 100-pound loads with a 26 frame and been fine. I find it's a little more challenging for me to get the pack adjusted right with a 26 than it is a 28. 28's kind of more forgiving, I'd say. So I'm gonna throw a 4-inch extension in here and show you what that looks like. All right, so I've got the 4-inch extensions in, and that gives me a 28-inch frame. You can see the advantage of this are two. I've got more load lift, able to pull up on the harness at a steeper angle. The big thing though is the load distribution. You can see on me, load distribution is really, really nice right now. It's not pulling me backwards, it's not pushing me forwards, I'm not tippy. So with a taller frame, it can be easier to get that load where you want it to be. And again, where you want it to be, probably 70% of the weight from mid-back to shoulder level. Not too much above, not too much below. So that's a quick and dirty on fitting for heavy pack loads. Hip belt slip is the big one. You've got to get that fixed. If you can't fix that, nothing else will work correctly. Secondly would be the torso height. And where you know torso height is right is I can loosen my load lifters, tighten my shoulder straps, tighten the load lifters back, and I just took more weight on my shoulders, and I can now loosen the hip belt a little bit. Pack won't slip. As you're on trail for a long time with heavy loads, your hips will get tired and your shoulders will get tired, so I tend to alternate. I'll put more load on my hips for a while, and then I'll reverse this process, basically shrug the load up, tighten the belt, loosen the shoulder harness, tighten the load lifters, and now I've just picked that entire load off of my shoulders and now it's on my hips. So if you cannot do this, if you cannot choose to put load on your shoulders or on your hips, then your torso height's not right or your hip belt is slipping, one or the other. The other thing on fit is frame height. I prefer tall frames for packing heavy loads. I can do it with a 26. The 24 is strong enough to do it, but it is not comfortable for me to carry this kind of weight. The bad thing about a 28 is if you need to look up slope, can't do it. And if you're in a lot of brush or overhanging limbs, you're gonna catch and snag. So it can be kind of a pain from that standpoint. I'm going to leave some links in the comments below, linking you to some blog posts on our site that will help you understand fitting better, to really dive in deep on that, as well as some videos that we've put out already. They'll all be in one spot for you. Dive into those if you've got any more questions on fitting our backpack specifically. Okay, so we've talked about fit, we've talked about load distribution. A couple other things I'm going to cover real quickly are clothing. And then we're going to get into compression, different ways that you can load the packs, and also how to get 100 pounds off the ground and onto your back. There's a few tricks there that can make life a little easier. So, clothing, one thing I will say is I cannot wear a leather pants belt underneath the hip belt with these kind of loads. I will get hip bruising every single time. So I quit doing that years ago, and I've tried all kinds of different webbing belts and things. Webbing belts, I have the same problem with. It leaves a hard edge underneath the hip belt and I wind up getting bruised. The only two things that work for me, these are Prana Zion pants, and they have a tiny little webbing belt in them, in the waistband, and that works great for me. It's very comfortable. The pants themselves are kind of stretchy and grippy. The hip belts work really well with those. The other thing that I found is an elastic belt that found for like 20 bucks somewhere, and it works great. Again, it fits really tight, hugs the hips, and doesn't bruise. The other thing I will say is if you're doing workout loads in the summer, wearing slick workout shirts, the compression fit shirts, those are prone to hip belt slippage. So gym shorts and workout shirts, just beware that your fit can be a little more challenging in those things. Let's talk compression, and when I say compression, I'm more talking about meat packing loads, like where you want to secure the meat, our different pack frames, things like that. So we'll dive in. This obviously is a breakaway. I've got different pack bags that can go on this, but I'm using it as a freighter frame at the moment with no pack bag. You can put a pack bag on behind this and compress it, and that would be breakaway carry. If this were an integrated pack bag, you've got two options to carry meat. You either do it inside the pack bag, or you put the meat on the outside of the pack bag and compress it. So this is a gatekeeper, and this is a gatekeeper compression strap. This is the basis of our compression scheme. All the packs pretty much come with 6 side and 2 bottom and 1 over the top strap. You can add extras, you can subtract those, you can get extra long ones. One thing that we do, I'll show you this real quickly. We finish these with a loop instead of a dog ear to keep them from backing out of the buckles. And that means that you can connect 2 of these straps or 3 or 4 of these straps to each other. So real quickly how I've got this rigged. Got the load shelf anchored to the elevated load shelf anchor points up here. I've got 2 gatekeeper straps coming around actually all the way to the very top of the frame. And then I've got the 6 side straps actually connected to each other. I just showed you how you could do that. You can connect these to each other. If you run a base talon or something, you can also connect them to the base talon. It's a really good focus point. I like doing that a lot. This one I'm doing something interesting. So I've got 2 sandbags here, and this middle strap was going down between the 2, so it wasn't doing anything to compress the load. So I took the gatekeeper on it and actually attached it to this upper strap, and then these 2 straps are connected to each other. This makes a redirect, so it kind of makes a Y, so it comes here and up to here and over here, so it's helping to stabilize this upper bag. So this works pretty well. They're extremely versatile. If you break them, it's easy to have an extra or 2. And one other thing is these gatekeepers anchor into web loops on the pack. So if you take some lightweight cordage or paracord or something, anywhere there is an anchor for a gatekeeper, you can run cordage through there and just crisscross across any size load. 50 feet of Dyneema Lash It or Zing It weighs an ounce and a half, something like that, and it can really help stabilize an awkward load. So I'll show you one more thing, how you can rig this load shelf as an elevated external load shelf. Pretty cool trick. All right, so this is a trick that I use a lot. This is actually my favorite way to pack meat. It works really, really well if you have a partially full pack bag. If you've got a full pack bag, then it does not work so well because the heavy load gets kicked away from your back. You get load distribution issues. But if you've got an integrated pack, this is the easy way to pack meat. Breakaway pack even, I think this is the easiest way to pack meat. It's what I use most often. It keeps the meat on the outside of the pack bag, so it's easier to keep things clean. And I generally will use a base talon for this and a load shelf. You don't have to have the base talon. You can do it with just gatekeeper straps. I like the base talon because then I can access all my gear. So the load shelf, you've got captive buckles here, and I've attached 2 gatekeeper straps on this end. There's the base talon. I'm going to attach the captive buckles to the bottom of the base talon, not to the pack, to the bottom of the base talon. So it looks like this, right? I'm going to flip it down like this, and I'm going to take these long straps and attach them into the anchors for the middle side compression straps on each side. You can clip 2 gatekeepers into 1 anchor. There's enough room to do that. So it's attached like that. Hopefully you can see that. This gives me an easily adjustable load shelf. I can set the height on this wherever I want it to be very quickly, and it stays put. So then, just slap my load down there, and I'm going to grab my compression straps. Tighten everything up, and it's ready to go. So again, this system works really well. It's very, very fast. You can do it on the outside of the pack bag. It's the quickest way to pack a load of meat that I've found. It works well with a partially full pack bag, like day gear. If you've got a really full pack bag, then the weight's gonna be too far away from your back, and it'll crank out your load distribution. All right, so one thing probably worth talking about is how to actually get this pack up. How to get into it and get up off the ground with it without hurting yourself, obviously. So what I find to be the easiest, stand the pack upright and then just sit down, loosen the harness just a bit, just to give me some room here. All right, now I've pretty much got it. And what I can do now is just roll to my knees and then stand up. All right, so now that I'm up with the pack, obviously it's not adjusted, it's hanging off of me. Need to get this fixed here pretty quick, so I'm gonna shrug it up, get the harness tightened down, give me some weight bearing ability. Shoulders are still shrugged while I get the hip belt situated. All right, that feels pretty good. I'm gonna loosen the harness, loosen load lifters. I've got the hip belt set, everything else pretty loose. I'll go ahead and get the sternum strap. The sternum strap really changes the angle of the shoulder harness, and it can help prevent some of the clavicle issues that some people have. So play around with that quite a bit. It's more important than you think. I'm gonna get the load lifters situated. Load lifters do a couple of things. They will pick up on the harness and transfer weight to the hips, but they also control sway. So if you're getting side to side sway with the pack load, tighten your load lifters, and that'll control that. And finally, I'll just micro adjust the harness. Good to go. Of course, there's a fitness component to this. I've not talked about that. You need to be fit. I think the most important is to be strong in your core and your legs, and then to have a really good VO2 max. So that's your cardiovascular capacity. And if you go to altitude, it strains your cardio a lot. So the only other thing I'll say about fitness is I don't recommend training with these type loads regularly. I think it needs to be done to make sure the pack's gonna work for you the way you want it to, when you need it to. But beyond that, it's just high impact and hard on your body. And I think that there are easier methods that will get you there where you want to be from a fitness standpoint without being so rough on your body in the long run. So 2 more tips that I think that you'll find helpful. The first is on our new style 4-way forward pull hip belt. We ship those from the factory with the webbing traveling through both slots on each side of the center buckle. And that allows you to tension the top and bottom of the belt independently to fine-tune your fit. With really heavy loads, I recommend that you run the webbing through only 1 slot on each side of that center buckle. And that allows the webbing to travel freely, and the tension will even out across all 4 of those buckles. It will avoid over-tightening one or the other of those buckles. So that's a good tip. Another big one is trekking poles. I absolutely love trekking poles for packing heavy loads for 3 reasons. The first is I use arm and shoulder strength to help propel myself uphill, which is huge, saves your legs. Number 2, tricky terrain, deadfall, side hilling, things like that is a balance issue. I've got 4 points of contact instead of 2, and it really helps you with your balance. And the third one is a biggie, is if you are on a hard descent, rocky terrain type stuff, I can kind of glide into that by reaching out with my trekking poles and absorbing that weight with my arms and shoulders, and that saves your knees a beating over a long trail. So guys, I hope that you have found these tips and tricks helpful. I hope that you will check out our website, look at our backpacks, and all of our other gear that will help you to seek outside.